Good afternoon. We want to welcome you to the San Antonio, Texas Soccer Roundtable. We have Coach Derek Pittman with us, who's the head coach for our UTSA women's soccer program. This is going to be his third season whenever the season starts as the head coach. He started in May of 2018. He was also the head coach at the University of Iowa.
Idaho. Yeah.
Idaho. He's also led UTSA to their best record since 2011 in 2019. He was the 2015 Big Sky Coach of the Year. He has been a college coach in different capacities for 17 years. Those colleges include Gonzaga University, Arkansas State, and the University of Missouri. And he also started coaching at the club level, so he's got a little bit of experience in everything. And he's originally from Tulsa, but we aren't going to hold that against him, especially after all of the substitution gate that happened this week. So we're just going to gloss
drama
over
with Tulsa, but that'll be legal.
We're going to gloss over that. So
I appreciate that. Don't hold that against me.
We won't, no problem. But we'll start with some of the late breaking news that it just came out maybe a few hours ago that the CUSA is going to be pushing volleyball and soccer to the spring. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, because you've been practicing, I've seen your social media, so how that impacts your training. Are they still allotting the same number of training days? Has that impacted? I know NCAA raised the training, some of the training days, and kind of how that just changes your structure and your strategy, knowing that you're going to be pushed into the spring.
Yeah, it's definitely been difficult, but I'm really proud of our players, how they've kind of carried themselves, the things that they've done. We were fortunate enough to bring all of our players on campus back in early July for initial screening process, being able to get all of our freshmen on campus back at that point in time, all of our returners back on campus, and being able to work out with our strength staff pretty much the entire month of July. So it was great to be able to do that. We were very fortunate and thankful that we were able to have that, opportunity, because there's a lot of schools out there that just weren't even able to do things like that. We were then able to begin our first practices back on August 4th, was our first kind of full team training session when we started preseason. At that time, we still had in our mind that we were going to be able to play on August 20th, which would have been this past weekend. Mm-hmm. And we were actually going to be opening up with a game at the University of Texas. And that was going to be the first time I'd had a chance to play up there in Austin since becoming the head coach here. And we were very much looking forward to it. Our opening weekend, it was actually going to be against UTexas, and then also Texas Tech University. So wow. It's going to be a huge, huge test for our young players. But I wanted to be able to test them right out of the gate, find out what we were made of. And we were working very hard towards that. I feel like our players are in great shape. They're hitting the ground running. All of our training was very much pointed in that direction towards that. Things shifted over the last 3 weeks, without a doubt, to those games being pushed to September. And then our first game was going to be September 3rd, I believe. And then everything shifted, like you said, just here recently with the announcement of Conference USA, really following suit with the NCAA and how the structure was all set up with the NCAA, with more than 50% of the Division I college teams bowing out and deciding to move as a conference or as a school to the competitions in the spring. That didn't allow for us to be able to ultimately have our conference championship and ultimately play an NCAA championship. So once the NCAA made that announcement, Conference USA basically followed suit and pushed everything as far as the competition to the spring. The challenge is we just don't know what that's going to look like yet. There's been no announcement from the NCAA of exactly how long our season will be in the spring. When will the championships be? So when can our conference championships be? Or do we get a 7-week season? Do we get an 8-week season? Do we get a 10-week season? And is it only going to be conference only opponents? We're going to be able to play conference opponents plus a few non-conference. And so with that being said, that's where it's also kind of left us in a little bit of a limbo here in the fall. Because as of right now, the way that we're doing it is we are moving forward as if we are still playing a game on September 10th. We have Texas Tech coming to play us here on September 10th as an quote unquote now exhibition match.
Sure.
But we're trying to proceed forward so that our players feel like they have something to look forward to. They feel like they have something to train for. And all of the work they've been initially putting in at this point in time is for something. And
awesome.
not just preparation for spring. It's an opportunity to hopefully play 5 or 6 games potentially this fall throughout the months of September and October. And so there has been no ruling from the NCAA or even the institution or even Conference USA that we can't play some non-conference games this fall as exhibition matches. And so I'm really working hard to keep our players focused on that. Also, at the same time, keeping our seniors feeling like they're having something to play for, something to train for, to get the most out of the fall and spring for them before they graduate in May. And so it was definitely a disappointing blow and frustrating because I feel like we've been kind of sitting in that limbo of, are we going to play? Are we not going to play? What does that look like for quite some time? And, really, we talk about our players a lot, is that adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. And that's where we're trying to keep our players' mindset. Hey, focus on what we can control, focus on what we can do. Let's keep getting better. I feel like we're in the best condition and best situation that we've been in a long time in the 3 years I've been here. And so we're going to just do everything we can to keep building on that.
So I know Danielle wanted to talk more about the 3 years that you've been there and what you've been able to accomplish and how you accomplished some of those things, but let's focus on the positive. You just said that you guys have an upcoming scrimmage against Texas Tech Red Raiders ladies soccer, which for those of you that aren't aware is a very competitive women's program in NCAA division.
And I apologize, not to start you. Actually, we were supposed to play Texas Tech. That has been canceled. We have a game coming up against Texas State. So Texas I apologize. Yeah, Texas State is coming down from San Marcos on September 10th as of right now. So,
gotcha. That's exciting to hear that you guys are just taking this and trying to do what you can to get the girls and keep them ready and have some of these exhibition games. I'm guessing that's something that's probably not going to be open to the public.
As of now, I don't believe so, no. Or if it is, it will be very, very limited on a pass list only type situation. Family or close friends would be the there
you
go.
can put us on the pass list.
Media members
happily.
Media credentials.
We'll see what we can do.
Sounds good.
I'm excited for that though. I'm glad to hear you guys have some upcoming matches still.
Yeah, and that's so. I mean, we as of right now, there's been a number of schools from the Southland, from the Sun Belt, even the American Athletic with Houston, that are still wanting to play and still being allowed to play. So hopefully we can get maybe a game in against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. We can play. Houston may come over, or we may go over there. And we had a previous game scheduled against Abilene Christian as well. Again, just to be able to get some games. And to be honest with you, I think one of the big things that a lot of people aren't talking about is the emotional and mental strain that this has really taken on our athletes. And, and again, on everybody for that matter, like high school age kids, college age kids, everybody that's been having to unfortunately be cooped up in their homes or been quarantined or isolated. It's a huge challenge. And for our players, being able to feel like they've been able to get out and train on a regular basis and then have a game to compete for and prepare for, it is huge for their emotional state and mental state to be able to just look forward to that, enjoying each other's company and feel like they're putting in a time and effort for something that really, really matters a lot to them.
Now, that's a great segue because one of the things that I noticed is that you're a program builder. You've really taken the University of Idaho and a lot of the other teams that you've been a part of. You've really made strides in building and changing programs and getting that recognition. I mean, Coach of the Year is a significant accomplishment. And, you know, you took the team to a place that it hadn't been for 7 years, a record of, I think, 8-1 was the best record they've had since 2011. So, it almost seems like you've done an about face with that team. And I know when teams maybe aren't having a great record or a great season and they're not getting those victories. I was an assistant coach on a team that they were the last place team in their conference. We shall not name names. But it starts taking a toll on them mentally, emotionally, even physically. And so I just wanted to kind of, get your perspective on how do you build a program? How do you take these students who are discouraged, who are feeling dejected, who don't believe in themselves or the team, and definitely probably don't even believe in each other, that like, I'm not going to pass you the ball because you're just going to blow it again. I know we've all been on teams that's happened. And so how did you revitalize this team that in 2 years now they're winning, now there's some excitement about it?
Sure. I appreciate that question, Daniel. I think this is my third head coaching gig. I first at Arkansas State, very exactly what you're talking about. Inherited a program that went like 1-19 the year before I got there. I mean, it was awful. And the way I looked at it as a young head coach, there was only one direction it could go. I couldn't make it any worse. And what's funny is back then, this was back in 2007, I had just gotten married. My wife and I have been married now 13 years. We had just moved to a new home, all those things. And it was just very much, my approach back then was very much just attitude, effort, elbow grease, like we're just going to work harder. And to some extent that worked, and we were fortunate enough by my third season to make it to the conference semifinals, do a lot of really positive things there. But it felt very result-based. It felt very outcome-based, and I struggled with that. And so actually that's when I took a step back and became the associate head coach at Gonzaga and moved to the Northwest to coach with a friend of mine who was very strong in culture building, very strong in just building players up in the sense of something for a long-term sustainable situation. And so with what I learned there at Gonzaga and then ultimately took to Idaho and brought here to UTSA was the pure and simple fact of is it all starts with our core values. It all starts with our foundation. It all starts with our players' buy-in, regardless of, and yes, don't get me wrong, we need talent to be successful. And what I walked into here at UTSA wasn't an empty cupboard. There was some talent on the roster without a doubt, but it was just a very fragmented, very fractured environment. And, players just, like you said, just didn't buy in or just didn't get along. And so a lot of the things that we did right off the bat was to really develop our core values. And we sat and had like numerous meetings early on in my first year here about who are we? Like, what are the things that we want to keep that we do really well that you guys are like, no, we can't get rid of this, like, and whatever that is. And then what are the stuff that we need to get rid of? Like, what are the things that we absolutely don't want to go back there? And then we talked about who are we? Who do we want to be as we move forward? And that's when we developed our core values of family, grit, and integrity. And these are all things that our players came up with at the time. Awesome. Yeah. And so we kind of have a deal within, we talk a lot, and this permeates everything we do, from how we go about our training, I have this discussion with all of our recruits. I have this discussion with all of our players, our leaders, you name it, anyone, anybody that is involved with our program and has an opportunity to have an impact on our players and our athletes. They know what our core values are. And what we talk about, it starts with family. And for us, it starts with love. If you love what you do, if you love the people you're with, and you love the university you get a chance to represent, then you will make any sacrifice necessary for that program to be successful. And not only will you make any sacrifice for that program, you'll do whatever you can to build your team or your community up in a positive manner. And so that's where it all starts for us, is on the family side. And then, and we know, listen, we're not blood related, but we sweat, bleed, cry, everything together like a family does. And so that's where we feel like it starts for us. And then the second thing we talk a lot about is grit. And they chose the word grit because they felt that it was the toughest version or the strongest version of toughness they could think of. And what we talk about there is a lot of perseverance, resilience, all of those things. We have a mentality in our team kind of called solve problems, is that we want to be solution-oriented individuals. And one of our favorite quotes in our program is from, the Greek philosopher Mike Tyson that said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And it's the truth, is that we go into games sometimes, we go into training sessions sometimes, and we have this idea in our mind that we want to accomplish this. And all of a sudden the opponent throws a curveball at us. They play a different formation. They come out with a different lineup, whatever it is. And you make a mistake, you give up a goal early, you get punched in the mouth. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to respond? Us coaches can't be on the field. We've got to be able to solve it ourselves as players. We talk a ton about that. And what that for us, we talk about is it takes courage. It takes courage to pick yourself back up off the mat when you get knocked down or your back's against the wall. What are you going to do about it in those last 10 minutes in response to a goal? We talk about it's better to execute a poor plan than not to have a plan at all, in the sense of our players. You can't just, we never going to be in a situation where we just throw up our hands and say, I don't know what to do. Like, no, find a solution, figure it out. And that's what we mean by grit, just showing that toughness to be able to fight through that adversity and those challenges. And then the third one being integrity is we talk a lot about just do what you say you're going to do. You say you're going to show up to those classes on time, then you do that. If you say you're going to do the summer workouts or put in the time and effort, then you're going to do that. Have integrity in everything you do. Be accountable to your teammates. Take ownership of where you are as a person and a player, and ultimately chase excellence and have respect for the people that you're working with. So I would say that's a quick little snapshot of kind of what our program's been based on. And that is what we talk about every day, is we play a cruel game. And you guys can attest this. There's many days when you're going to play games, you've coached games, you've seen games that you outshoot your opponents 25-5 and you lose 1-0 on a bad referee call, or somebody makes a mistake, you name it, right? Like
name our flops.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. And those are the things that you can't control. And there's also times when we've been on the other side of that result, where we've held on with all we have and we just snuck in a set piece goal and we win 1-0 and we had no business walking away with 3 points. And so what we talk to our players about is we measure ourselves. Did we play like a family? Did we show love and sacrifice for one another? Did we show grit and toughness and courage? Did we show integrity and being prepared for that contest as much as we possibly could? Did we show respect for one another? And if we do those things, more times than not, the results will take care of themselves. And I've seen it be successful at Idaho when we were able to flip that program around pretty quickly. It's definitely been a little longer road here at UTSA because Conference USA is fantastic. Conference USA is a very strong conference with North Texas, Rice, Florida Atlantic, Charlotte, go on down the list of really difficult opponents. But where we used to get ourselves just absolutely wiped by those teams, losing 5-6-0 to North Texas or Charlotte, so on and so forth. I mean, we've now been able to put ourselves in the position to where last year, like you mentioned, Danielle, we went into the very final game against UTEP with a chance to make the conference tournament. And we've never made the conference tournament here since 2013 when UTSA moved to Conference USA. And we feel like we're making strides and closing that gap and doing a really good job. And and that's what's so kind of gutting about this season is that we feel like we have even a better roster of talent and depth, and with the real possibility of challenging for a conference championship, or at least conference tournament berth and those things. So we feel like we're moving in the right direction, but that is definitely the core of what we do and our culture, our foundation, how we recruit. I literally will sit in a Zoom call now, but sit in an official visit situation and I will tell them what I just told you. And I will tell a kid, please, please, please do not commit here if you don't buy into these things. Because if you don't buy into these things, you will be miserable. I will be miserable. You're going to end up transferring away because we're going to butt heads like crazy, because this is how we hold ourselves accountable each and every day. And so we hope that we're recruiting players of high character, recruiting players of high talent as well, and just individuals that really are in line with who we are each and every day. And that's one of our hashtags is UTSA DNA. And we push that out is because we feel like we have to have players who live out our UTSA DNA each and every day.
Well, Coach, I was kind of curious just on that recruitment point, and you got to buy in for me here. I still got 4 years of NCAA eligibility if you need somebody, but I think that might be against the rules. What's that recruiting process been like for you kind of this off season? I mean, I know at first when we thought it was only going to be a couple weeks with the schools closed, you guys kind of figured you'd still have that period. How has that changed now with as long as this has all gone on?
It's definitely shifted things, no doubt. We were very lucky that we were very aggressive in our 2021 recruitment of players, and we didn't need a big class. We only have 5 seniors on the team right now. Okay. So as of right now, we have 4 verbal commitments for 2021 that will hopefully be signing in November. We may still add 1 or 2 more to that class, but we're being very patient, and I think we can afford to do that because I think there's the transfer portal when it comes to recruiting is going to open things up, just because of even COVID. Like, even with everything that's going on, now that the NCAA announcing not just that we're pushing the season to the spring, is that regardless of how many games a kid plays, every single kid on every roster across the country is now going to get an extra year. So this is almost acts as a redshirt year. Now, saying that, it doesn't mean that all these programs are going to be able to afford to keep those players. So I think you're going to see the transfer portal blow up. I think we can be a bit patient in that, in the 1 or 2 players that we still want to add to our team going into 2021. The other thing is with 2022, we only have 3 juniors on the team. So we only need a class of 3 or 4 for 2022. We already have 1 verbal commitment from a local talent here in town. And we hope to be, gaining some verbal commitments from some other local talent. I would say it's really the biggest thing for us is it's really shifted us to recruit a lot more locally and not just in San Antonio, but also in the South Texas area. And that was always a goal of ours in the beginning. In 2019, we came in and we were just, hey, who can we get? Because we were late in the recruiting process. What's the best talent available? Let's bring those bodies in here and let's compete. And I think we did an excellent job of that with our 2019 class. Our 2020 class is another step better. Our 21s and our 22s are definitely going to be another step in the right direction. But I would say our plan as a coaching staff is a 100% recruit the crap out of San Antonio, South Texas. Yep. And try, and you don't have to look too far to a player like Kendall Closa, who went off to Virginia Commonwealth in her first year, had a disappointing experience and immediately wanted to come home to San Antonio. And she's arguably one of our top players on our roster. We've had many other incidences like that. Abby Castle, who is from Denver, Colorado, but transferred from NC State. Gabby Crenshaw, who transferred to us from Washington State, who has a sister that lives in Austin. San Antonio is a tremendous place to recruit to. UTSA is a booming, university and campus that's growing, and athletic department. With the addition of the new facilities that are currently being built, we're making strides under President Amy's, his vision, his plan, and then ultimately Dr. Lisa Campos carrying that out as our athletic director. There's a lot, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I took the job back in 2018 and really actively pursued the job, because I sincerely feel that our athletic department and our soccer program is an absolute diamond in the rough, and hopefully we'll be able to be here long enough to continue reaping the benefits of that.
I wanted to kind of touch on, because I think all of our eyes sort of popped a little bit when you started talking about Texas Tech and University of Texas at Austin. I mean, those are big schools. Those are ambitious teams, ambitious games. We had Avery Chaney on, who was a DA player, who's dabbled with youth national team levels, who went to who's going to Texas Tech. She started in the spring, so this would be her first season. We know that they have rich histories, long traditions, but they're also known for talent. And so, are you ambitious? Do you want to beat these teams?
Oh, absolutely. Like, you have no idea. Like, I'm not saying, if we played them 10 times, right, let's be honest. Like, I'm sure they're going to outshoot us in that 25-5 every time. But I do believe our players are talented enough if we put in the right, and that's the beauty. That's what I love about the game, is that there's no doubt Tom Stone is an absolute legend when it comes to the college game and what he's done in his career at a number of different levels. And you're absolutely right. Texas Tech is a very, very talented side. Even the University of Texas, and Coach Ange has done a phenomenal job there as well. Even G. Guerreri and I both went to the University of Tulsa. He's been there how many years? Like 28 years at Texas A&M. And all of these programs have been to, Texas A&M Final Four, Sweet 16s, Elite Eights. And don't get me wrong, I'm not under some delusion that we're going to walk in and beat them every time, but I do think that our players can learn and compete. We played Oklahoma State at the beginning of the 2019 season in our second game of the season, and we were tied 1-1 with them at halftime. Unfortunately, a storm rolled into good old Beaumont, Texas, and shut down the game, and we weren't able to play the second half. And, would we have come away with a win there? I don't know. But I was extremely proud of our players, of how much we frustrated their team, how much we made it really difficult for them. In fact, in 2021, our opening weekend right now, we're planning on going up to Oklahoma State and playing them and potentially the University of Pittsburgh, or possibly my alma mater, University of Tulsa. We'll see. But there's supposed to be a little bit of a tournament there. So, yeah, I've told our staff we typically get anywhere from 8 to 10 non-conference games every year. And I want at least 2, if not 3 of those to be Power 5 schools. We want to be measuring ourselves against those teams to find out what we have. And because it doesn't do us any good, in my opinion, to just play a bunch of teams we feel like we can beat. It's not going to prepare us for Conference USA. North Texas, it was ranked RPI, I think a couple of years ago, RPI 30th. Florida Atlantic last year was RPI 32. Rice has been traditionally RPIs in the top 50, top 60. If we don't play those top end Power 5 schools, or at least schools that are in that neighborhood, it's not going to do us any good. And I've seen some crazy things. I was fortunate enough at Idaho. We were down 4-1 in the second half to University of Memphis at the time at our place, and we came back and won 5-4. And at the time, they were RPI ranked 40th in the country, and we were 170th. It's just, and we know how this game is, right? On any given day, if we line up right and get the right matchups and we execute our game plan, we can put ourselves in a position to win those matches. And so, absolutely, Daniel, we want to play those teams whenever we possibly can, as much as we can.
That's awesome. I love hearing that. It's something we have talked about with high school. So whenever the high school season rolls around, we're always talking about these really excellent teams need to have a difficult preseason to get them prepared for everything. And actually, I was going to cue Harry in on that and see if he had any questions. But it's something that we firmly believe in, and we think, it just makes good teams better, and then it prepares you for your conference. It prepares you for what you're going to see. And like you talked about, that grit, you have to have that grit to play those teams. I remember in college, we were a NAIA team, and the Canadian U17 national team came to play us, and our heads were reeling. We were like, they're just playing ping pong with us, yep. Pinball. It's just going around. We're just, it's as if we're just standing there. So it's excellent. So we love hearing that. We love and we love that San Antonio's, having those teams and getting that visibility. So that's significant.
Coach, I
So
love just hearing you talk about how you guys have kind of reworked some of your recruiting strategy around that local and talent and everything. And I think that's a big deal that we've kind of brought up a lot too. And one of the things I think Danielle was curious about, because I know we only have a few minutes left for this portion of the show. How do you try and get more women coaches involved in the women's game? Have you, in your experience coaching women's soccer, what's your experience been coming across that? And how do you change that, do you think, a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a ton of really top talented young women in the game. I was fortunate enough to have had quality assistant coaches. I even worked with at the University of Georgia when I was the assistant coach there. My boss was Sue Patberg, who was at the time the U16 national team coach back in 2003, 2004. And she did a phenomenal job just trying to bring up young female coaches and open the door for them to come out and watch training sessions. And I still try to do that today. Once all this COVID mess goes, like our training sessions are open. And so if there's ever, high school coaches, club coaches that want to come out and watch our training sessions and just even have discussions, we want to be able to do that. Again, my boss had at Gonzaga, Amy Edwards, who had a tremendous amount of success as a head coach at the University of Tulsa and then did a solid job at Gonzaga. These are women, very strong, independent, very intelligent women about the game that I've learned a lot from, and I've hopefully been able to pay that back. And in fact, Laura Jackson was my assistant coach as a graduate assistant up at the University of Idaho, was with me for 3 years, helped us win multiple conference championships. She then leaves, goes to Florida Atlantic, wins a conference championship. And then in her first year at the University of Kansas as an assistant coach, wins a conference championship there in the Big 12. And so no doubt she's going to be a head coach one day. And right now I have a very strong female coach, Cameron Carter, who is from Waco, played goalkeeper at the University of Arkansas, and then came up to be my graduate assistant at Idaho for 1 year. And she knew it was too cold, so she was happy when I got the UTSA job. And so she quickly, jumped on board and has been phenomenal. She's a 25-year-old young, strong female that is doing a phenomenal job, learning her craft. And so, yeah, we want to provide as many of those opportunities as possible so that young female coaches and male coach for that matter, but can come out and utilize our program as a bit of a beacon or as a bit of a guide. We know as a female team, we want to be the number one women's soccer team in San Antonio, period. Now, does that mean I'm some guru? No, absolutely not. Like, I learn stuff every day. I learn stuff from my staff. I learn stuff from other people colleagues of mine, that by no means do I feel like I have all the answers, but we want to at least provide an opportunity for coaches to come out and watch us and see how we handle things, how we play. Maybe they like it. Maybe they don't. Maybe it's just a different way to look at things, but it's an opportunity for us to have discussion. Some of the best learning situations I've had as a coach, this is now my 20th college preseason, is just been sitting around over coffee or around a dry erase board and just bantering about, like, why would you do that? Or how do you do that? Or like, how would you, okay, I get that, but how do you teach it? And how do you help your players understand it? Those are the best things, just being able to sit around a round table and or even a magnet board and just have discussions like that as a coach. I never really thought of that. And, so that's what we want to try to create. We've even talked with local, organizers in town as far as how can we do more coaching education? How can we do more things that we can bring out young coaches that want to learn and just be around our environment and be able to have those types of discussions and learning sessions? Because again, I know that I will gain probably just as much, if not more, than potentially other coaches that might be around us.
That's awesome to hear.
Yep.
That's excellent. You're doing lots of good stuff with the program. We're all a little disappointed that we don't get to see the team play this season, that we have to wait until the spring, so another 6 months. But we're glad that nothing was canceled, just postponed. And we hope, fingers crossed, that some of these fall exhibition matches we might be able to kind of get in, maybe as media or at least as attendees. So
well, if possible, we'd love to have you. Like I said, I want you guys to know that you always have an open door here. If permitted, we'd always love to have you guys come out. So
I appreciate that, Coach.
Thank you so much.
We're wishing you all the best of luck in your exhibition matches and whatever that Conference USA tournament schedule looks like. And I love the work that you've done with the program. I've been able to attend. I attended several matches last season to watch you guys and just to enjoy watching y'all play. So looking forward to hopefully having the opportunity to do it again. Any final thoughts or just any shout outs to the girls or to your coaching staff or anything like that you want to do before we send you off?
Sure. No, I definitely would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my coaching staff. Again, I know I mentioned Cameron Carter earlier, who's done a phenomenal job with our goalkeepers, but even just adding Carl Goody, who just joined our staff, literally March 1st was his first day. He worked for me for 2 weeks and then we went on break. So, but he's been tremendous. He's brought 6-7 years of experience from LSU and the SEC. He's just a great balance to our staff. He's been a phenomenal addition. Our players absolutely love him. And then another individual that does a ton for us, his name's Corey Marr. He's our volunteer. He works closely with a lot of our media stuff, but he does a lot of quality stuff when it comes to our training sessions, as far as our pre and post practice type activities. He's a young 23, 24-year-old coach that's just learning the game as much as he possibly can as well. And so they've all been working exceptionally hard to make sure our players stay focused, coming up with new ways to keep them engaged and again, pointed in the right direction. I'm very, very fortunate, from our strength coach, Dex Molinaro, to our trainer, Shelby Dale, you name it. We have a phenomenal crew here that does a great job making sure our players compete at the highest level. So again, we're thankful to be together, in the sense that we can continue working together and training and hopefully planning for games. And we can't wait for the spring to roll around and, look forward to competing against some people other than ourselves. So.
And I think one last thing, Coach, is you got to do a Go Runners.
Absolutely. So, for sure. So go Runners. Birds up for sure. So, no, I appreciate you guys for having me on. Anytime you guys ever need anything, do not hesitate to ask. Would love to continue talking with you guys, and hopefully we'll see you at some games here in the near future.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Coach. We'll definitely get you on for a recap here pretty soon when you guys get to start playing again. So I'm looking forward to that. All right.
Thank you, guys.
If you guys are watching our live show, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
So how do we want to start this here? There's a little bit of news from the Oklahoma City match, which was a great win. But I think majority of the conversation is gonna be about the Tulsa and then what happened after Tulsa match here. So, but just to kind of get started here, this past week, SAFC completed their 3-game home stretch. They had the tie against Austin 10 days ago, somewhere around there, and they played Oklahoma City on Wednesday, August 19th, came away with a 4-0 win and a pretty convincing win. And then they followed it up with a 2-0 win against Tulsa. So we'll start with Wednesday. Rafa, your thoughts? I know we kind of briefly talked about it previously on the pregame show, but for the round table here, what's your thoughts as far as on the Oklahoma City Energy game?
That was a good rebound game after kind of looking stale against Austin. So, but we were happy we blew them out again. So that's 7-0 against OKC. Hopefully we'll do that again in a couple of weeks when we play them. But it was a good win. They fixed a lot of things what they needed to do. Play the ball a little bit more wider. They press, attack a little bit more touches on the ball. And you can kind of tell that they kind of make some adjustments, especially up front. Especially the change with Gallegos going to forward and Pirano staying in the back, that did make a big difference. I know they want to play both of them at the same time, and they kind of, with the Austin game, it just didn't mesh. It meshed on this game for the OKC game.
Well, I think on this one here, and I'll go to you, Danielle. On this one here, they weren't running Baloney or Di Lorenzo up top with Solignac and Gallegos and Pirano here. So I think you're kind of seeing two front lines now, where you got Gallegos and Solignac up top, and then coming off the bench, you've got both Baloney and Di Lorenzo for that here. So, your thoughts on the Oklahoma City Energy game?
I like that we mixed up. We had talked on, I don't know. I have quarantine brain about when things happen. I'm in a time warp. But I like that we had the three up top. I think we had all been kind of saying we wanted to see that, and allowed for Pirano and Gallegos to be on the field together, and I think playing in better positions. I do think that Solignac is playing well with them up there. But one of the things I think I also realized in the OKC game is we've been talking a lot about the partnership between Pirano and Gallegos, but I mentioned this ages ago at the end of last season about who's going to partner with Pirano coming down the sideline and who's going to pair well with him there. And I think what I've realized is, I think this is the second, maybe the third game where they've had Jose's been partnered with Blake, so Blake's been working with him, and then it looks like Christian with Connor Maloney, and you're starting to see the benefits of having that natural pairing where they're able to read off each other. Connor and Blake know when to make those runs up, and I think Christian and Jose are learning, like, hey, when do I hold it? When can I lay it off? And there's just a much better partnership there. So I think the Pirano-Gallegos partnership is really important. It's going to be critical for us because they're central, and I feel like we've built the whole team around them. It's the partner down the wings that's going to help them really pressure or give them a target player, because once they get the ball sucked into them and the player sucked into them, they need someone to lay it off or to help pull players away. So I just think that's kind of that next level that I liked. I think it's made a huge difference, and you can see some more natural cohesion with those partnerships.
So there actually was something very big on here, and I'll start with Scott, and then we'll go back Danielle and Rafa will go in reverse. Wednesday was the first match that Leo Torres came in, and you saw kind of the torch pass from Ethan Bryant to Jose Gallegos to Torres. So, and I know SAFC, the media team, did an excellent job of promoting that. It was all over the USL website, and even beyond that, I've seen that here. So we'll start with you, Scott. Just how big of a moment is that, not only for Mr. Torres or Leo Torres here, but also for the club in general?
And that's the second time I've gotten goosebumps now tonight. It was definitely a special moment, and bear with me just 1 second. I have to turn some monitoring settings off because I'm hearing myself. There we go. And it was so cool the way the media team captured those photographs and everything from his starting moment, at that age to now. And just as a parent, I can't imagine how they've been able to capture that journey, and it just demonstrates exactly what they're trying to accomplish with that academy system. I know at the start of the season, the one game I got to interview Coach Marcina, that was one of the things I had asked him about is, how do you take and translate what you've been able to accomplish with Jose Gallegos to some of your other players now? And what does that say about your academy? And they've lived up to their word, and so I think that's really what makes San Antonio FC special. I think that's why, for those people that have concerns about the 2021 season, I really don't, because they've obviously planted that seed for the long haul in the academy program. And I know the Scorpions academy program folded too, but you didn't have I can't even speak to that. Rafa, maybe you can speak to that a little bit more, but did you have the same level of Scorpions academy players and seeing the success that we've seen with guys like Ethan Bryant going overseas, guys like Jose Gallegos that might be a national team player one day?
Leo's been on the youth national team as well already.
Leo has been on the youth national team. You're absolutely right. And I'm talking about U.S. men's national. We got U.S. youth national team players already.
Yeah. Danielle, your thoughts?
number one, I'm glad that he's healthy. First and foremost,
Yes, after
I'm
last year.
glad he's healthy. I'm glad he's able to play, because for any athlete, just being able to step on the field again after an injury is just huge and significant. So I'm glad he's healthy. I'm glad it didn't send him back or derail his career. So congratulations for him on that. I do think that this makes a difference. You see a lot of the MLS teams, and they're not giving their academy players starts. Their academy players can't even break into the team, let alone get a start. Or they're sitting on the bench or a reserve player. So I think that that's highly appealing to lots of players, to see both Leo and Jose, and then to have several others listed on the roster because they're signed. That's a huge step, and they continue to dominate the MLS Academy teams too. There's no way you could say no to having SAFC in that new Academy MLS system.
Academy, yeah.
I do think, he was a little rusty, but it's his first season out there. In his first game out there. So, but I loved him. He was running everywhere. He was chasing after the ball. And that's exactly what you want to see. You want to see him out there, and you want to see him hungry. So, check.
Your thought, Rafa?
It was nice to see that, like I said, homegrown player get up to the first team. I think it just shows how good our academy program is, and we're kind of that staple as far as developing players. Kind of like with the Spurs, how they know how to develop players with the Austin Spurs. It's the same page with the soccer team, with the SAFC. So that's something maybe a lot of teams are probably going to start. I know a team up 35 is probably going to try to copy us, and as far as the blueprint, as far as or maybe players, or you never know. But the thing is, it's good to see him. Like I said, there's probably other players right behind Torres. They're just waiting to get their opportunity. I think maybe because of the COVID season being maybe short, we maybe not be able to see them now, but I'm sure they probably see them in the beginning of the 2021 season. And like I said, it's just a good way to put us on the map, especially to like European teams, because that's where Ethan Bryan's at in Belgium, playing over there. And I'm sure Gallegos is probably going to end up playing, who knows, MLS or maybe even Liga MX or in Europe, somewhere. So it's kudos to the staff. They know how to develop players. They know how to, they don't take them for granted from like other teams just to stick them in there just for show. I guess so they're grooming them right, and then getting them ready. And you see David's reward is Gallegos, and you see he's performing at a very high level.
So the other news that happened in between, and this I think happened late Friday or Saturday, I forget, right before the Tulsa game. I want to say it was Friday. But SAFC parted way with midfielder Jesus Chuy Enriquez and forward Preston Tabort Itaka. Any thoughts from anybody on that? I had high hopes for Chuy coming in, but unfortunately, it's another one of the RGV imports that
didn't work out.
Just doesn't work for various reasons.
Yeah, so
I think it's normal. It's the normal season. We always have a couple games in when everyone figures out their strategy and their formation, see who works, see who doesn't. And so I'm kind of glad, because hopefully they can get picked up on another contract and find another place to play. So glad we didn't hold on to them too long, and good luck to them.
Yeah, not to beat a dead horse, I think playing time is obviously a huge factor for these guys and their decision. We talked about it on the SAFC pregame show. I think they had 60-something minutes combined all season. So one was 47, one was less than that. So whatever that difference is. But I think it was mainly playing time.
I was going to say, out of the two, I think I would have stayed maybe with you just for depth purposes going into the playoffs, because it's just experience-wise. I can understand Preston. He's, like I mentioned on the pregame, so we got Team Argentina playing forwards, and he's just not going to get an opportunity, so he needs to go somewhere that he's going to get playing time. But I think Chuy is more. I think he brought a lot, and I think especially like let's say something goes down with PC or Hervu, he would have been a good role player to come in just in case something happens. So hopefully maybe they're looking at filling those spots and bringing somebody to just in case, so we can bring in for the playoff push.
I think one person we haven't talked about is, I'm probably going to butcher his name, Vieira.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's been great off the bench. I think he's been a good little spark. So then the hard thing is, I think Vieira is first off the bench in those situations. So I think he would still be behind someone. And I was looking at the roster the other day. We have a really deep bench and player
roster.
pool
Mm-hmm.
because we still have like 3 or 4 people who haven't even seen playing time. And we have the whole academy as well. So we have those 5 academy players that recently signed that are also talented young players, but able to fill in. So, and then I'm sure we'll pick up another 1 or 2 players. But that also leads me to, because, thinking about injury and stuff, it leads me to one of our previous guests on here who we just have to give kudos to Sean Arders for what he's doing in terms of strength, training, physical fitness, because our guys are out there hustling for 90 minutes and 3 or 4 days later, another 90 minutes, maybe getting 10, 15 minutes. I know, I fingers crossed, but I keep watching these games and I'm like, their players are going down with cramps every 5 minutes, or they're on the ground. I'm like, are they made of glass? Now, some of that is we're milking some stuff here a little bit, but I just really noticed what a different edge the team has in that situation. You can just even tell the speed, the way we're moving. We're constantly moving, where some of these other teams are seeming a little flat-footed. And so I think truly that's what Sean has contributed. And I don't think there's many people who are doing what Sean's doing in the USL period, and probably, it's more at those exclusive, D1 premiership levels. But so just a little tip of the hat to a favorite of ours, Sean Arders. So got to keep that in mind.
So, go ahead, Rafa.
It's the pickle juice to keep the cap.
Right.
So,
But to just go for Danielle, I think I can see as far as not getting injured and so forth. Sean is doing a great job. You can tell there's a big difference as far as the fitness out from last year and this year. There is a big difference.
But I think also part of that comes from Coach Marcina as well, because he set from day one. He set the tempo. He said, "Hey, we're gonna, fitness is not going to be an issue." Where, under Coach Powell, I don't know if it was the players training or what. You just didn't see that same tenacity that the team has on the field. And to be fair, winning helps a lot. San Antonio FC hasn't had any challenging times. And not saying that as far as results on the pitch as of yet for that here. So, but moving to Saturday here, August 22nd, San Antonio came away with a 2-0 win. A PK scored by Luis Solinak in the 42nd minute, and then a laser by Ignacio Balleroni in the 89th minute for there. We'll just kind of, there is another topic we need to address after we get through here, but we'll start with Rafa this time. Your thoughts on the Tulsa match?
I was looking forward for this game. I know we had the Tulsa guys talking trash in the pregame.
Scissor Tail Nation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Scissor Nation. But we told them, hey, we didn't have Pirano that game, and he made a difference in this game, and we put the right people in the right places, and we got the 2 big goals, and we finished them off in that second one. Like I said, we took it to them, and I'm happy with the win. A lot better passing the ball. PC was active the whole game. Feeding balls. One thing I enjoyed was Maloney's runs on the wings. Same thing with Blake. There's a couple times they needed to run back because they were leaving little people open, but we're spreading the ball out on the wings. And if you notice, they weren't able to park the bus. Every time we played the ball on the outside, they just couldn't park the bus, and we had more open shots. So that was the key to the game, and that got us the victory for Saturday.
We'll go with you now, Miss Danielle. Your thoughts on the Tulsa match?
Jose Gallegos is collecting souls and breaking ankles. Period. End of story. he took on those. Gosh, it must have been early on in the first half because it's like the first note I wrote. I'm like, Jose Gallego's collecting souls. Like he just totally took these defenders on, and I'm like, yeah, a teenager did that to you. And
Well,
so
the
he's
dance he
just,
had on the box, right on the outside. Even the announcers were just like, they just chuckled off and laughed.
So here's the thing. I was thinking about this because we have such high expectations for Jose Gallegos, and we're like, oh, he's holding onto the ball a touch too long. He and Pirano are still holding onto the ball like one touch too long. But I'm also noticing the players coming to support them are about 1 or 2 like seconds in terms of their thinking behind. Mm-hmm. This is what his third start. His third start in a game against Tulsa, and he's destroying defenses. So we're talking about a teenager who's only started 3 professional career games and has come on as a sub and is at this level. Like, if maybe we give him 4 or 5 more games to see what he can do.
Just give him 4 or 5. That's like
right. So I think the nice part is we'll be peaking right around those playoff times. So I feel like we're fine tuning everything. I think Tim Hankinson made a comment in the OKC game. We had 17% of shots on target. And I feel like our shot percentage was much better this game. I also am curious because I noticed the first game we had a PK, it was
Oklahoma City.
Yeah, it was PC, right? And then this game, Solinak took it.
Yep.
So I'm also curious if we have a designated kick taker, or if it's like, hey, these 3 people can take the free kicks, or like. So I'm kind of curious to see over a few more games if we have 1 or 2. What, Rafa?
Yeah, PC takes the free kicks from the outside, from the left side.
But he had the PK, and Soniak had a PK, so
but
that's a good
not
point.
100% true, because Pirano takes a lot on
that too.
Pirano and Jose take quite a few as well.
Yeah,
we got to keep
ones on the right.
Yeah, so that's my thought, and then yeah, I thought all the cards were good, straight red, and probably the double yellow. The guy said something stupid.
So yeah, just to piggyback off Danielle, I think shots was the big factor in this match. San Antonio FC had 18, 8 of them were on target, so that's a pretty good percentage, and 2 of them you put in the back of the net, versus Tulsa, who only had 6 shots, 3 of on target. So I think that the shots really helped San Antonio FC in this one, and that's exactly what we wanted to see.
Mm-hmm.
So you brought up the second red, and here's my question to you as a referee. And if you can't answer, you can't answer it. But for Eric Bird to get the second yellow and then pretty much the ball get kicked right after that, is there any reason why the ref wouldn't just allow it to slide? And the reason why I asked that is because it happened right at the end. They kicked the ball next.
We can give cards after the game. There have been MLS matches where in the tunnel, coaches and media people and whomever are getting cards in the tunnel, right? We've seen in a lot of high-level professional games. My question, Harry, is, Eric Bird, why don't you shut your freaking face? You're sitting on a yellow. Don't be stupid. Now, there's also a difference, right? There's a difference in the level of referee as well. I don't think he realized who he was dealing with. I think sometimes as a younger referee, you kind of look and go, oh, let's keep him in the match and things like that. But Luis Guardia refs MLS regularly, right. USL. He's been reffing USL, SAFC for the past 4 years.
He ain't putting up with it.
He's not gonna tolerate that.
That's
You're
the
gonna say
Ed Hockey from the NFL or whatever, right? That's the ref you don't want to mess with.
Like he knows the rules and he has no qualms. To me, that's on the player.
No, I'm not saying that. If you're going to pick
up that second red, that's completely on you. Second yellow, I'm sorry.
You're good.
But you put your team in that situation, not
second
the ref.
Red's a whole different story here. So
because we're only able to make determinations on what you present to us.
Right.
If you shut your mouth, then I don't have to give you a yellow card. But if you're going to start saying something to me, you're going to put me in a situation where now I have to decide.
Give you the second yellow.
Yep. And I've had games, Harry, where and of course this is like Sunday League where someone's mouthing off to me and I'm like
in Sunday League
or wherever, I'm like, here's your yellow, And I'm ready to walk away. Just here's your warning. And then he keeps coming at me, and I'm like, you want to keep going? Like,
Get out of here.
do you want another yellow? And I'll ask. Like, I'll give them a warning. Like, I'm going to give you another yellow, and I'll look at his team and go, do you want to help him out here? And he just keeps going off. And then as soon as profanity starts, I'm like, I'm just gonna get out of here.
Maybe next Sunday, buddy.
Yep.
So-
if that.
So as far as I think, for my view, I thought for this week, SAFC, got the points they needed. They got 7 points, and I think I sent out a tweet saying that we're +5 on the road as far as for goal difference. At home, there was 7 points and a +6 to end up +11 on this 6-game stretch that was back to back to back. So I think you have to be hats off to the guys and the team and the staff and all the guys behind the scenes that don't get any credit at all for that here. But after the match,
immediately after the match, Harry, why don't you just say it?
And I'll say this is when I was seeing SAFC doing one sub at a time, it kind of gave me an uneasy feeling. Now, when the forced sub happened, because they used the forced sub, which technically you're allowed 5 at this time, but you're supposed to do it in 3 windows. I think a lot of us, when it was 90+2, I think I saw Haravel go off and Partain came on, but I didn't pay any attention to it, because at that time we were just like, hey, let's just finish the game. That was already after 1 red. I forget, it was a Tulsa player, Fabian Batistas, for kicking the ball into Di Renzo's face after the play was over. So you had that going on, you're like counting down, hey, the time's going to end. And the sub kind of slipped, the forced sub slipped in. Then immediately after the game, Tulsa on their social media was like, hey, SAFC used 4 subs, which I was like, it didn't change the parameter of the game. Then of course the story got picked up with Jeff Reuter from the Athletic saying, hey, the rules state that if you go over the the player subs allotment, that technically you could require a forfeit. It goes from a 2-0 SAFC win to a 3-0 Tulsa win for that here. So that all worked out today. USL Championship released 2 statements. I'll read the first one from Pro, which is the referees. During Saturday night's match, officials allowed a 4th opportunity for San Antonio to make a substitution. While the team was still inside their substitutions allotment of 5, the number of moments in which those substitutions were allowed to occur. While the laws should be adhered to by the referee crew and team, the moments component is largely procedural and in place to avoid additional stoppages and delays. As such, USL in consultation with Pro as well as IFAB will uphold the 2-0 results. So I'm going to start with Danielle on this here, and I know you're a referee, so we'll kind of bypass whether you think it's right or wrong. But just as far as for the process where USL went to the referees as well as IFAB, how was that the right thing for them to be able to do in this situation? Is there something that USL should have done or shouldn't have done in order to make their decision that they made?
So one thing real quick that I want to point out, a lot of people are probably like, what's this IFAB and why is it important? A lot of people think FIFA makes up the rules of soccer. FIFA is just a governing body. IFAB makes up the rules of soccer that FIFA adopts. So there's a whole separate organization that exclusively works on the regulation of the laws of the game. So that's important, and I would encourage everyone, if you have ever had a question about a call, look it up. IFAB has an awesome app. The other thing with that is they should know as officials, and you typically manage that and then give a courtesy, hey coach, this is how many you've used up all your moments. The question becomes, what does the law say? And in this case, it would be, what do the rules of competition say? So the question becomes, if it's not wasting time or, putting, one player on, but the clock was stopped, no time was used, no extra time was used. I don't even think any of us realized anyone was subbed until the game even started. So the question comes down to what does the law of competition say? And the fact that they went to the highest governing body that oversees everything, it is probably not as typical. And so really they went to get this call right. So they wanted to make sure it was done correctly, it was done properly. So it's not just they don't like Tulsa or they don't like SAFC and why don't they just do it? But what will probably happen is an amendment of, and subs can be made on stoppage, because that's probably where it wasn't clear. What is a stoppage, and a hydration break is considered slightly different than a free kick. So that's sort of my objective take on it, per se. Maybe you're a little bit, but just so everyone knows too, every USL match and higher is reviewed by pro or a national coach. So it's not just like this is going free and clear. The referees are getting feedback. They're getting coached on that. I'm sure this will be a huge talking point. And it's only slightly disappointing that this is what people are going to remember, not the incredible work that SAFC did and how they won. And they were undefeated. I think the better talking point would have been SAFC is kicking everyone's butt, and look what's happening. So,
Rafa, your thoughts?
I think it was just, not to say an honest mistake, is just, ever since they made the change to the 5 substitutes, I think that caused a little of the confusion there. And in reality, it didn't make a difference in the game anyways. The game was already at hand. Had it been maybe a 0-0 game, then SAFC scores in the last minute of stoppage time, and okay, then there's something to talk about it as far as that and make a ruling. But I think the ruling today was fair, and it was just an honest mistake. Maybe out of this they'll learn from it how to keep better track, not only as far as the officials but also the coaching staff. Some of the coaching staff needs to be aware when they have those allotted times to do the substitutions and so forth. So, and like I said, they're going to learn from that. And this is our first season having 5 substitutes, so it's going to get, because under normal circumstances, if this was just 3 subs, this would have never happened. But since it's 5, they probably lost track as far as the time frame as where we can sub. So it was just an honest mistake. But I think both teams will learn from it. Like I said, everybody will learn from it and just move on.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say, for me, I'm not a rules expert. I don't have the experience that you guys have, so I'm probably the average Joe on Twitter for that here. So there's 2 ways to look at it. So from the SAFC side, I think that, having a forfeit would be harsh. And this would be for anybody, especially with this just being a new rule, to say, hey, you got to forfeit a game on a rule that's been in place, a month now, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, at this point here. However, if you have rules in place that are not clear, but still that still leads you to believe that, hey, this should have, SAFC should have forfeited the game. Now, people a lot smarter than me made the final decision, but I think overall, as far as not necessarily on SAFC side, but looking at a USL side, I think this kind of hurts them a little bit, just from a view among the fans and followers of the league, where, because there was a clear rule if you went over the substitutes, and that's where this kind of gets into that gray matter, where they didn't go over the number of players, but they went over the number of windows. And I think that's where I think SAFC got off on the technicality of it is, yes, they didn't go over the 5 subs, but they went over that 3 sub window. And I think for me, just as I'm not a rules expert or anything along those lines here. I think for me, that's where that kind of comes into a gray line, to where if I was a fan of Tulsa or Phoenix or somebody else, just because those 3 points could be extremely important at the end of the year. Not so much for San Antonio FC to get into the playoffs or win the group, but those 3 points that they're getting could be the difference of them hosting the playoffs all the way through, through here at Toyota Field, or happen to go to Rising or OC or along those lines here. So that's where as an SAFC fan, hey, I'm all for it. As a fan of the league, it's one where I think you open yourself up to, for a little bit of criticism.
My rebuttal to that, Harry, would be, so then when we implement new rules, do we just not enforce them, or enforce them as we choose? I mean, look at VAR. There was a lot of questions with VAR, or a penalty kick in the Women's World Cup last year where the goalies had to have their foot on the line for the penalty kick.
Right.
That went into effect in June with the World Cup literally starting the following
weeks
week.
Away, yeah.
Literally, it was just implemented in the She Believes Cup on a trial basis, and then it went into effect. So do we just not enforce rules until we feel
But that's what I'm
with
saying, is it doesn't seem like USL enforced the rules, though, because they had a rule, and to the average person, it seems like that SAFC got away with it because it said, hey, if you do more than the 3 subs, which I know letter by the law, they're talking about 3 players, but they did it in, they went beyond the 3 windows, which, they're still supposed to be adhering to, as the 3 windows outside of halftime. Because from my understanding, when I went through and looked at, I want to say it was the USL guideline that they had for the substitutions on the return to play, they had kind of language in there that led it to believe that, said, hey, you can do, the three sub windows and halftime. So it was somewhat in there, but like I said, it's a gray area technicality, for that here. So I just think for a SAFC fan, yes, we got, we were lucky. I think it was an honest mistake. I don't think there was any, anything done to try to get an unfair advantage or anything along those lines. Because, I think was Aaron did the heat check map, and you saw just a little dot, from where he just stood in a position, and then the window blew.
I think he had one touch on the ball.
Yeah.
But the problem is if you have to set a precedent now, because what if it was a player who had played 6 minutes, or even if he didn't score, but he has the clearance that, sets everything up. So I don't think there's a person on the field that is inconsequential. I think every player matters, everyone in the 11, and everyone in the 11, it just happens to be that he only had 1 touch on the ball. And so I think you have to take that out of the equation, because otherwise you're just, then it's like, well, but if he had 2 touches, now what if 3? But if he has 5, where are we going to draw the line on 5 touches?
Right.
So it's either, and I think if the language was clear enough, I think Pro would have been able to make the decision. The fact that they went to the very, very top, which is something I'm sure that they don't do very often.
Especially for USL,
yeah. Yeah, for anyone, you don't usually go. So they wanted to get it right. They wanted to follow the laws. And I can guarantee the language wasn't clear enough. For you and I, would be like, oh, it's super clear. But it could have said something about, stoppages. It's, I'm telling you, I've been with referees, and they argue about like the semantics of this is what this word means, and is pretty specific. So it's not like, hey, let's just do this decision based on whether we like Tulsa or SAFC, or the fact that IFAB made a ruling on this meant that the language probably wasn't clear, but now we'll know. And everyone going forward will probably be able to sub on water breaks as their 4th. So, hey, thanks SAFC for paving the way. Great.
How do you fix this from ever happening again? What would be the solution to this?
really the only solution is to make, a new decision, and they're probably going to have a call with all the GMs and say, going forward, we're allowed to do this. As a ref, what's done is done. Once the game's in play, it's hard. But as a ref, you always want to try to make sure that you're counting those subs, and you know the rules. Everyone reads the rules of competition before play. And so there's lots. I mean, it went through five coaches who are familiar with the DA system of moments and windows. So it's not like we're dealing with people who don't know about it. That they use it. They've been using it for years. And then you have a really good referee crew too. So it went through, like 10, upper level people, you could say, on a game before anything happened. And then every single player who's sitting on the sideline also knows the sub rules too. And no one said, one too many subs, Juan fourth. So I would just say, let's look at the bigger picture, not just blame refs. Do we make mistakes? Yes. I will tell you, I make probably a mistake a game, minimum. Like, but we just learn. We learn as a crew, and then USL now is probably making some language changes, and
well, this goes beyond USL though. I think, talking to you in kind of warm-ups here, this decision where it's went to IFAB probably goes beyond just USL, MLS, and could impact outside. Is that correct?
Well, technically that's true, because if you look at the Premier League in England, they've been playing with the same system of 5 subs with 2 water breaks. Now, their language in the rules of competition may be slightly different, but they may have phrased it better. They may have been very explicit of when. But I can guarantee that a lot of clubs and countries will probably start looking at, what is my language, and let me use this additional time to have a sub.
I think La Liga allowed substitutes during the water breaks, because I remember seeing a Real Madrid game, and I think Zidane made I think like 2 subs during the water break.
Now the question is, does it count as a moment or a window? That's where the technicality.
Yeah.
So it may have been the SAFC saw this La Liga match and said, oh, they made a substitution during the water break, and look at what happened in La Liga. And that was acceptable there. So there's so many factors in play, but it may just cause a lot of leagues to make tighter changes to their phrasing if they're going to allow that or not.
And from my understanding, if my memory's right on this, and Rafa could probably correct me, I know they said this is a temporary amendment to the laws of the game, but from my understanding, this is also going to be next year as well, right? This carried over not only just for the return to play for all these leagues, but it was extended to
Champions, Euro Cup, and all that.
All of the other leagues as well.
I didn't think I noticed in the Champions League final a water break. I don't think the final had a water break.
The hydration break, right? I think that's I think that's the interesting part about this is because hydration breaks aren't, we've had a SAFC match that didn't have a hydration break in the first half, but had one in the second half.
Mm-hmm. We just typically, So it's just going to depend, and it may be a seasonal thing, especially because we were playing through summer, and you have to have those hydration breaks and a lot of warmer weather and players just coming back. So they may keep it, but it may be different. And some of it, again, it goes to, but what are the rules of competition? So IFAB will have the rules, but like you see in youth levels, they'll have, unlimited subs. So you can have unlimited subs. The entire team can come on and off multiple times. So there is sort of the caveat of, what.
And so switching gears to the next match, which is going to be Friday because it got switched up. It's an ESPN Deportes match on Friday for that here. So thoughts on the RGV match? They're still winless on the year for that. We'll start with you, Rafa.
Well, they're going to remain winless of the year again. I think SAFC is going to be looking forward for this game. I think they learned their lesson from the first game, giving up that late goal at the end. And like I said, we're hitting on all high cylinders in these last few games. Well, the last 6 games, minus, I guess, that one Austin game was kind of a little of the thumper, and then also the FC Tulsa. But I kind of see that as a win because it sold some points over there. But this one could get ugly. I know our RGV gave a fight with Austin Bold, but we're not Austin Bold. We're SAFC. We're in first place, and we're going to remain undefeated on Friday night. So, and I'll say my prediction for the pregame show. So, but I know we're going to get a good win on Friday.
Drink the blood of your enemies, Harry. That's what I think. Drink the blood of your enemies and show no mercy. I think the lineup will be a little different, and since I'm not on the pregame show, I will be in Austin. I think the lineup will be different. I think we'll probably put in a few players who haven't gotten a ton of playing time.
I don't think so.
I think we'll have 1 or 2 different people. So I think it'll be like a Bailone maybe up top in place of Soloniak. But I think the people who haven't been regular starters, maybe DiRenzo up there, pull Soloniak out. Oh God, I need Preston and Luis to send me a pronunciation guide of everyone's name like they do for like the World Cup and everything. I think there'll be 1 or 2 players rotated through. I think, Kai Green might get some time. I think Montgomery hopefully will be back. So I think we'll see 1 or 2 of the people who've been regulars, but not maybe started regularly. I think there'll be 1 or 2 of those, and depending on injuries and things like that, we may also see some of that. So I think we'll drink the blood of our enemies. I'm going to say 3-0. I think it'll be another really good game, but I think it'll take a minute for, maybe Hayden Partain will come in, get some time in there. So I think we're not going to lose the quality, but I think, it'll take a hot minute to mesh. But yeah, I'm going to say 3-0, and you can quote me on that in the pregame show. Put a little picture of me with my little thought bubble of 3-0. Okay.
I will take down your thing. And that's something that I want to do next year, is to do these predictions and have a little bit more of a tracker on that here. My thoughts here, it's a tough match. It's always a tough match when you go down to RGV. I think RGV is a wounded animal right now, where they're basically playing for pride. I've heard that they're going to have a drive-in style fans there, so there may be some fans. I'm interested to kind of see how it is attended here.
Do they even have fans in the games before?
That's a whole separate discussion here.
I will say I think they do a lot of good stuff down there as a club that more people should be participating in. I see a lot of stuff and I'm like, ooh, that's cool. I want that. I want to do that.
One thing I'm to go for the kill.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think they need to go for the kill. I think that they should definitely get I think they should definitely get the win, but how many times have we said that before when it comes to RGV? The one thing that I am interested on here is if they can get the win, then that will even the series. 5 wins for RGV, 5 draws, and 5 wins for SAFC if they can get the win, which would make next week's SAFC game the one where SAFC can finally go ahead on the season's the head-to-head competition, because unfortunately SAFC has never led the head-to-head with RGV, because the first year RGV I think won 3-1 against us here. So final thoughts, I want to appreciate both of you and Scott for coming on. Scott had to jump off a little bit early here. But final thoughts here from you, Rafa, and then we'll go to Danielle next.
Just final thoughts. I'm looking forward, like I said, for this Friday's game, the big South Texas Classico. Like I said, I'll get into more into depth on our pregame show, and then also great Champions League final. It was a very exciting final. I thought we were going to have more goals, but But the better team did win. Like I said, you got hats off to PSG. They did a great job this season. And then a little personal note. Like I said, I used to do drumming there for supporter groups and all that. One of my influences in drummers passed away Thursday. Frankie Benali. I actually knew him. Like I said, got to meet him here in San Antonio about a few years ago. Passed away from pancreatic cancer, so condolences to him and his family. But he was one of my biggest influences playing the drums. Like I said, I used to beat the heck out of the drums there with the supporter groups. So, like I said, prayers to him, and then looking for some more great soccer on Friday night.
Your thoughts, Miss Danielle?
Welcome back to school. I was super happy. I know it was the first day of classes for UTSA, so I thought it was very poignant that we had the head women's soccer coach on, and then we found out that they're not going to have a season. So I don't know what we're going to do with the time. Can the English Premier League start up like in a week or two? That would make me really happy. So yeah, my life is going to be pretty empty. But back to school, everyone be smart, be safe, take care of yourself. Please, please, please wear your mask no matter where you are. And there's so many cool masks out there. So get a mask that fits your personality, and then you can kind of be yourself, or that meets your needs, that you can breathe a little better. But don't wear it down around your nose, wear it above your mouth. And I do have to also say, I want a Black Lives Matter SAFC t-shirt.
Max does Max does too.
I said it even before Max, so I just want it. Like I said it 2 or 3 games ago. But I think if we did a pre-order, hint SAFC, I think they'd be good. But now I don't know if the league or someone is saying we can't. Maybe a different. But I also do like that our coaches have continued to wear them, where I've noticed a lot of the other coaches are not still wearing them throughout the season. So I really want to say kudos to the SAFC coaching staff who's continuing to wear and represent and speak out, because how many people are watching this match, how many people are coming across it. And I love that that's how we're representing our team and our city, is by supporting people of color, by supporting our Black lives. So I just really like that, and I think that's important, and it doesn't get noticed enough. But I notice what coaches wear. I notice all the time what coaches wear. So I really appreciate that.
So my final thought before we get out of here, I've got 2 of them here. One, and I know this might sound odd, but I know probably most of us know somebody or has family down in the RGV Valley here. They are doing a fanfare bear drive where they're trying to, be able to give out 300 teddy bears, for a very good course, as they say. It's $25 for a teddy bear, and it's $30 when they tack on the fees that go with it. I think there's a ticket involved with it, but it goes to the children of Friends for Hope down in the valley here. I know, just having some friends that live down there, times in a smaller town can be a little bit more difficult, so getting any assistance, especially for kids, is a worthwhile cause here. So just to give RGV a shout out here, I know Mr. Ron Patel doing some good things down there as the GM of that here, and like I said here, so if you have family, friends down in the valley, or you're from down in the valley, if you have the opportunity to donate to that, please do to help support. For 90 minutes on the pitch and banter off the pitch, we'll go with RGV, but supporting causes, especially for kids, which is very dear to my heart. Something that I think we all, if we can do, pitch in, because I have a feeling if we did something in reverse, they would be doing the same thing, especially with the guys from down in the valley. If we submitted something to them. My second thought here is I do want to give a huge thank you to Scissortail Nation, on the pregame show. I thought it was a lot of fun, especially with the banter back and forth, and brought a little bit of spicy going on to it here. So a huge thank you to to those guys here, and hopefully we'll be seeing them again soon.
They do the spice on his foot, I guess.
Spice on the foot, and especially
Really
with
good that
the,
I'm not there for these things. I got some good trash talk. I don't think they could have handled it.
It was a lot of fun, and like I said, you know, that's something that I know we want to kind of keep the pregame show a little bit separate from, you know, from like the roundtable discussion that we have here. But like I said, here, you know, we're all kind of one family here in USL. You know, whether it's, you know, the guys and gals over in Phoenix, you know, OC, you know, down in RGV, you know, with down in the Valley, you know, up in
San
Oklahoma
Diego.
City, San Diego with the loyal, Fair Play Pod. I'll, you know, get myself in trouble. You know, New Mexico's pod with Chris.
And Alicia.
And Alicia.
Oh, come on, Harry. Don't just remember the men's
see.
names. Oh, Harry, shame. So on that note,
shouldn't have went down this road because there's
on
too
that
many
note,
to
I'm
listen.
going to help you out, Harry. I think you just need
Seek
to
and strike. Seek and strike.
I'm gonna let you just. So right now, I'm gonna do the outro, Harry. I'm gonna do the outro.
I failed.
All right, San Antonio soccer family. That's all we've got. And what's life without goals? We out.
Cut it off, Scott.